those of you who came out in December and saw this notice on the door that the meeting was canceled. I had a very unexpected fall, which prevented me from coming, so I'm glad that this worked out today. I'm just going to make a few brief comments about some of the issues that have come before the City Council up to this point, kind of give you a preview of issues that we'll be looking forward to discussing in 2016, and then open it up for questions. I also have a number of questions that have been written out for me, and of course I'll take any additional ones. A couple of housekeeping details. If you aren't familiar with City Hall, the washrooms are to your left at the end of the hall, men's and the women's washroom. The elevator is just before that. So we will get started. Again, welcome. I was installed as alderman on May 11th and went through an orientation. Just before the installation, the city manager met with myself and Mike Marquardt, who was the other new alderman, and we spent several hours learning about city structure, the process of reviewing material before the council, the budget process, and so forth. In addition, I went to an orientation for newly elected officials put on by the Illinois Municipal League. And then in September, along with several of the other aldermen, I went to a conference put on by the Illinois Municipal League. In the 6 months that I've been in office, it's been a very busy time. The way the budget process is scheduled, new aldermen, we kind of take a breath and then we're right into the middle of the budgeting process. And when I was handed a budget book that was like this, I thought, oh no, this is pretty scary. But we had 4 meetings, the council as a whole had 4 meetings with the Finance Advisory Committee as we were going through the budget process, and then we had an additional 2 meetings with them in the fall. The fund balance has increased to 23.4%, and the city's financial policy is to have that balance at 25%. So we're really moving forward, particularly from the 2009-2010 era when it had gotten into single digits. Among the budget adjustments that were made at the request of council, the HR director hiring was deferred, and also new financial software package was also deferred. For those of you who follow the council meetings, on the website you've seen that for this Monday's council of the whole meeting, we're going to be reviewing the savings and budget adjustments that have been made over the past year. So there's a several page document that I'm not going to review in detail now, but it might be of interest to you. We also addressed the issue of University Village, and it really was a difficult decision. And I met personally with individuals on both sides of that issue. We were faced, we being the council in the city, were faced with looking at deteriorating property. And the reasons that it has deteriorated have been put forward, but my perspective was, regardless of what caused it, we had to deal with what the current situation was. There was a perspective that market forces would eventually address that issue. It would no one knew how long it would take for those market forces to work positively. The Tenants Association was formed close to the time the discussions began on that, and really came out in favor of working, with the proposed owners, with security properties. For those reasons, I did vote to approve that proposal. Another issue that has come forward, actually has come forward to the council over the years, is the Egyptian theater. Few people question that it's really a benefit and a prize in downtown DeKalb. The question is what to do with it. And rather than put more money into the Egyptian, the council elected to fund a feasibility study, and that would be required before additional funding would take place. It's my understanding that most likely at the January 25th meeting, that's going to come to the council. Water rates. Everybody uses waters. Everybody looks at, okay, how much are they paying for water? Unfortunately, like many other municipalities, we're faced with an aging infrastructure. I was amazed to learn that some of our water mains are almost 100 years old. And so the city, like all of us homeowners, have to maintain our property. And so we had to take a look at what we could do to address really a crumbling infrastructure before it became an emergency situation. And so in looking at the water rate study, we elected an option that would fund projects, but also tried to look at a rate structure that would limit the impact on lower rate users, particularly seniors. The tax levy. Again, we were faced with a difficult situation because we are required to fund police and fire pensions, and the actuarial calculation of the amount required has changed. People are living longer. Gosh darn it, and so we have to plan on, people using those pensions for a longer period. Moody's, in taking a look at the city bond rating, addressed the issue of pension funding. They did not lower our bond rating, but that was an issue that was a concern to them. And the library levy. We admire the new space, but of course it comes at a cost. And the library had done a good job in obtaining state funding. Unfortunately, the state hasn't done as good a job at passing a budget. And so those dollars that were supposed to be allocated to the library are held up, much like dollars across the state. I just heard this morning that lottery winners are bringing a lawsuit against the state. Not as critical an issue as funding our library, but it shows, just a whole host of issues impacted. The library board looked at alternate funding sources and drew on a proposed drawing on a line of credit, but they were required to basically have funding that would be solid back for payments of the interest. And the library board passed a levy. It came to the city council then, and the city, by state statute, is required to pass the levy proposed by the library board. And frankly, we had very limited time to review any alternate funding sources. Some policies that have been changed, that have been brought forward, that I see as positive steps, purchasing manual, financial policies, a change in the vacation accrual method so that it is accrued per pay period, clearer to employees, less liability for the city, additional health plan options, which have resulted, including HMO and high deductible plan. This is going to result in an estimated $133,000 in savings to the city. The city council will be reviewing the strategic plan in more detail this Thursday. It was developed through 15 community conversations with 321 participants. 91 people also completed a survey and 2 individuals' email comments included. The draft plan was presented to the city council for input, and then city departments translated the strategic goals into strategies and actions that will be reviewed on Thursday. And the final strategic plan, including an operation component, will come to the city council for review and adoption. Over the next several months, we're going to be taking a look at the proposed Chodine development, also a fleet replacement schedule and plan. I don't know how many of you know that there has not been a schedule for replacing the police vehicles, the ambulances. At one point in the last couple of months, we had 2 ambulances out at one time. Of course, the ongoing infrastructure, the road issues, economic development, and then I hope to bring forward any issues that you bring to me. Before we address questions, I'm going to look ahead. And is this a convenient time for a meeting? And is there any thought on how frequently you would like a meeting with me?
I believe you said you were gonna meet once every, 6 months?
And this is,
This is 8 months in.
Well, not quite, and again, and Michael, I'm sorry that the meeting in December didn't take place.
I mean, I know you were interviewed, but I'm just saying.
Mhm.
And also my opinion is you ought to have this meeting in the ward, not in Ward 4.
The time is
And I will,
convenient.
I was looking at, I know that there are other options for a meeting place. Any other comments? Sure.
I would say quarterly meetings would be, especially with all the things that are going on that are affecting our ward in particular in the city as a whole.
Ron used to do them every quarter, thereabouts,
Okay.
so.
Time seems to be convenient for me.
I agree.
Yeah, it's a good time. Yeah, it's a good time for a meeting.
Yeah, Saturday.
Yeah.
Saturday mid-morning, yeah.
Okay, I do have a couple of questions, but why don't I address questions from the audience first? Misty?
I have just some clarifications on what you were already talking about. And so I've got like 4 things that I would like to have a little bit more information on. You talked about the water rates, And we all understand that we have a crumbling infrastructure, that's not under question, but isn't some of that money going for salaries or pensions or something other than the actual infrastructure?
Well, money goes into the water rate fund, and, you know, it wouldn't necessarily go in for pensions. I'd have to, you know, get you more information on
Okay,
specifically, because
that-
I'll be honest, I don't know the percentages.
To me, a tax for water rate ought to go, if that's the plan, to help the crumbling infrastructure, that all money under that label ought to go for that. The next one that I had is you brought up the tax levy, and I just wanted to be clear. The library has asked for a certain portion of that, but the city's portion of that is larger than what the library asked for. And you didn't address that at all.
The council approved for the library the amount that the library board brought forward.
On top of that.
But on top of that, the city did a tax levy
Yes, because
that was a larger portion, and you didn't talk about that. You talked about the library.
Well, I said it was the police and fire pension, but the portion that went to the police and fire was actually higher by over double than what the library. Everybody was focused on the library,
How much they asked for.
yeah, but really the city asked for the largest chunk.
well, yes, and on your tax bill,
They're separate.
the library portion is separated from the general city levy.
Will the library
And
pay that back then to the city when they get the
If-
money from the state?
If the library, receives funding from the state prior to the tax, you know, your
No.
taxes going forward.
Oh, before I pay, if they get
Yeah,
it
they
before
will
I pay
abate
it?
it.
If they
will
get,
abate
and if they
it.
get the money after I pay it, then I'm paying for that library twice?
If they get the money after you've
Then
already
what,
paid
then what
your
happens, they just
taxes,
keep it?
the city is looking at the mechanism for,
Spend it.
you
And,
know.
okay, and when will
using-
that be put in place?
Un- Until the city knows when, you know, the state budget is approved and the
Can't they just
city-
put something, can't they write something that says upon approval of this fund, upon receipt of these funds?
I will find out where they're at
I mean,
in the
otherwise,
process
we're
of-
paying for it twice, aren't we?
It's likely to stay, you know, once it's on the tax rolls, they're not going to want to give it back. So I want some sort of assurance, at least from your perspective, that in the event the state does come through with the library funds, that you, at least you will say, hey, okay, let's figure out a way to abate this back to the taxpayers so they're not paying for it twice. We just want some sort of assurances, like in writing, I think is what we're saying. So not IOUs. I mean, in some sort of legislation, if you will, you know.
Intergovernmental agreement.
Yes, yeah.
Well, and I don't know if the form would be an intergovernmental
Right.
agreement, because the library is a municipal library, so
Right.
it's actually
Part of the
part
city.
of,
You were
part of
able
the
to
city.
come
the
up
city
with,
structure.
a process in which they can get the money, right,
Because
from the taxpayers. So now let's come up, and I know that there are brilliant minds here in City Hall and on the council. Now you can come up with a plan that returns the money to the taxpayers. If you can do it on this hand, you can do it on the other hand.
And I will have to find out what that mechanism is.
Please do
I
that,
knew,
and then
I
let us
knew,
know.
you know, before the taxes levied, if.
I had
I'm sorry,
two more tiny things that you touched on, and then we can go to other things. But I would also like to hear information. You said proposed Shodine development, and that's the only 3 words you said on it. I'd like to know more about the proposed Shodine development and also economic development. Again, 2 words. I would like to hear more about economic development.
Okay, the proposed Shodine development is, along 38. They're talking about, apartments and, you know, there's a question, you know, what the first level would be.
Is that on the south side of 38 or the north side?
South side.
Outside.
Okay.
And before it even comes to the council, it has to go to planning and zoning.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
the city council has ignored their recommendations in the recent history, so.
Well,
That's
and-
pointless, who cares about that?
Well, there are a number of, you know, issues that they're gonna take a look at, and, you know, I would certainly, you know, review what they
Well, yeah,
said.
but will you heed their
Yeah.
recommendation, because you haven't in the past?
I need
That's a yes or
information
no.
on what is coming before them and what it is, you know.
And if you don't have enough parking, what's gonna keep them from parking in our part of the neighborhood? Across the street?
Michael, we aren't even looking at anything specific.
Yeah, but we are, because we
They have a
live there.
proposal out, and I've read the proposal. And the proposal has X number of parking. I've been sitting there, I went to the planning and zoning, there was an X number of parking spots per unit. It was some like it came up about 2.5 cars per 4 bedrooms, okay? Now, let's look at that. If, you know, this is assumption that college students don't drive cars for some weird reason, okay? Especially those of us living in North Fifth Ward, we know college students drive cars because they're all parked in front of our houses. So what would happen if I had and Shodine's proposing that they pay for their parking spots, okay? So that would limit the number of parking in there. So now I'm a student living in a Shodine apartment, and I'm paying for a parking spot when I can park for free in the North Fifth Ward. Why would I pay for a parking spot?
Michael,
Yeah.
certainly, you know, when the Planning and Zoning Commission reviews this, you
Couldn't
know,
you pay attention to that now?
come forward, present, you
Okay.
know, your concerns. If it,
But I'm presenting
And
my
it could-
concerns to you now.
okay, you know, I understand, but it comes before Planning and Zoning before it even comes.
I
to the
understand,
city- to the
but
city
you need to know
council.
what
Sure.
there are people here too besides me, I mean.
Kate, so often things are brought to the city council and they're disregarded, they're disrespected, they're treated rudely. Who wants to do that? Not me. I won't come before the city council because I refuse to be treated like other members of our ward have been treated. So that's why I'm here now, talking to you.
Okay.
Because I'm not going to be humiliated in public like that.
And I addressed in one of my announcements, the attitude and behavior both of council members to each other, to the public, and the public to the council. Because I think that if we treat each other with respect, we'll have a better chance of listening to each other and working together on issues.
I would hope. It can only improve.
Yeah, there's,
Elizabeth?
I think what's being said is ward residents would like you to communicate to planning and zoning that this is a major concern of ward residents
Fair enough.
as they look at the plan.
Lynn?
There was a mistake that you made earlier when you asserted that city council is obligated by statute to approve whatever levy proposal the DeKalb Library brings forward. That is actually incorrect. I've looked this up before and I would be glad to do it again. If I were to send you a listing of the cities and towns that have rejected their library proposed levies, is this something that you would, what would be your response if I can prove to you that other cities and towns do not always accept the proposal of their library's levy?
I would review the information and then discuss it with the city manager and city attorney.
But I assume it was Dean who told you that
Yeah,
the
it
city
was.
council is required to do this.
That's false.
However, even looking at it intuitively, why would the library have to come to the council in the first place if it were not an obligation of the council to consider it and vote it up or down.
You know, I agree that it doesn't make sense, you know, logically, that we are required to approve what they come forward with. But the city attorney, at least at this point, has presented, the opinion that we are required to pass that.
You know what, that's an excellent point, that you were saying that the current city attorney, is saying that council is statutorily, obligated to say yes. However, the previous city attorney knew no such thing, and in fact advised the council that they could in fact reject a proposed levy. So I would say this is something that's very important to a lot of people now that the library's levy has gone up a lot, and I believe it's time for a second opinion, past time for a second opinion.
In fact, Alderman Baker was on the council at the time that happened. He pointed that out during the meeting, so it's on the official docket that it happened in the past. Just a little research needs to be done. Go back through the minutes of previous meetings and verify Alderman Baker's claims. So, and I remember seeing it myself. I remember witnessing that. So,
I will, you know, Lynn, my city email address is listed on the agenda, and if you like to send me the information, as I said, I will review it and then discuss it further.
The ones.
Passing,
Kind of dovetailing on that too. And these are some things that I think people are suggesting that you look into and hopefully discuss publicly, you know, so that everybody can understand what is being said and what is being explained. It's my understanding that the library board, and I agree, I'm not sure that you can't deny as a council. I'm still not sure about that. And a second opinion through the municipal league and other law firms could certainly be something that the council needs to look at. But also, I believe, my understanding is that the library board levy can be abated up until a certain time. I'm not sure exactly when that could be, which leads me to ask,
That's fast.
can our portion or part of our portion also be abated? Because people are talking, cut, don't tax, and stop spending. That's a message that people are saying clearly. So those are questions that are kind of related. And the other question I had, and as long as that is going to be asked hopefully, is why wasn't TIF money utilized for helping the library out? And my thinking, this is just my thinking, I could be totally off base, but TIF is for blighted areas and so on and so forth, but in that particular case, given that the state has done what it's done, and they got caught with their pants down type of thing, certainly the library is good for the entire community, and TIF monies might be a good thing to use. And it seemed that was, I went to the library board meeting and I've asked that question, and it seems mostly from the staff that they weren't really eager to give options as to how the TIF money could be utilized, and I find that unbelievable. If that indeed is a possibility, why wasn't that looked at in more detail? Could those TIF monies could have been used in some way, shape, or form? Or are those TIF monies scheduled to go elsewhere that hasn't really been discussed yet? So, you know, these are some of the things that people are worried about.
Well, there's also what causes some of these problems. There's a structural problem in the city. The structural problem is when Anne Marie came in, she reassigned the legal department as a consultant to her office, okay? And she pays his bills. And the previous city attorney reported to the council and the council paid the bills. It was a direct line to the council. So the city manager was covered if it needed it, but the city attorney actually reported in the old line before we had a consultant attorney, an in-house attorney. If you look at the structure, right under the city council sat city attorney, okay? So he was actually your attorney. Now what we have is a city manager, now we have a city attorney. He is Anne Marie's attorney, because Anne Marie sets his pay, okay? And that's something you wanna look at as a council. How is your legal advice being done in a way which supports the council first? The council is the client. I mean, you're the guys, if something goes really bad, you're the guys people will sue, okay? It won't be, Anne Marie is gonna be protected, okay? So your lawyer needs to be reporting to the council, okay?
Well, and Michael, I should point out that both Anne Marie, pardon me, and the city attorney, as well as other city staff, are always very clear that they take their direction from the city council.
That's not the way it works. Legally, she is their boss. The only person you can fire is Anne Marie.
And the city attorney is.
Reports to Anne Marie.
Well, yes, but it is a consultant
Right.
service.
That means that you have no direct control of her hiring or firing him.
Well, I would question
I
whether
said I would
we
look
would
at that.
seriously have.
Contractually, when his contract comes up every year, you guys can let him go. A quick note about the city attorney, I've been watching.
Self-renewing, it's now, it's a self-renewing contract.
You don't get to
Unless
look
they
at it.
give
Ah,
them 30
okay.
days notice.
Okay,
Right.
Yeah,
that's interesting, I didn't know that.
that's
So
a renewing
every-
contract.
Which would mean that any time you could end it with 30 days' notice.
No.
Right.
Not just once a year, or,
No, Anne Marie can end his contract with 30 days notice.
Yeah.
Not the council.
Okay,
She hires and fires. The city manager is in charge of her own staff,
yeah,
okay?
I know.
Yeah.
Is there a review process? Do you have a review process for city staff, including the attorney?
We have a review process for the council has input
Right.
on the review process for the city manager. And then there's there is a review process for other staff, reporting to, the city manager, other department heads and so
I
forth.
wanna make, I didn't hear all of that, you speak softly, and
Oh,
I
I'm sorry.
appreciate that, no, I'm not criticizing.
Uh-huh.
I wanna make sure I heard you correctly. You say the city council has input on the review of the city manager?
Correct.
Who else has input on that?
The mayor basically collects, information.
From?
And I'll be honest, because, I haven't been here for a full
Sure,
year, I
sure.
don't know who
Okay,
he
well, thank you
collects
for
it
your
from.
honesty, I appreciate
You
that.
know.
But I think the city council really should have some input, because I don't know that you're always being well served as a council.
and it's interesting, having watched councils for a number of years, this city attorney has taken on a totally different role than previous city attorneys who were there to advise the council. Our city attorney makes presentations to the council regarding ordinances, when it used to be the city manager and city staff that would do so. And if council had a question, or if there was something wrong, the city attorney would chime in. Now we have our city attorney drafting ordinances, he's writing these ordinances, when it used to be city staff that did that. I mean, we elected the city council to come up with laws and legislation,
Well-
not the city attorney, who should be there just to advise. Norma, if you remember Norma Guest in the past, she had a totally different role. She was there to advise.
Well, and I will point out that I see the city staff, including the city attorney, as the experts in their field. And so they come forward with information and advice. you know, our role on the city council is to have oversight, to ask questions, to do research.
Well, that's why your attorney needs to be
And-
independent.
But I am not gonna, you know, come forward and say that I'm an expert to draft legislation.
No, but
in
you can
all
always
of
ask
these.
questions, because the
And I
public
do.
cannot ask questions
Yes.
of the city attorney. When someone asks a staff member a question, we're told to shut up here in council. We're not allowed to
Yeah.
ask anything.
Well,
I
you can
do
ask
have
things,
a-
you're just not gonna get a
We
response.
don't get responses. We get these blank stares, you know, and it would be kind of nice to have a conversation, you know.
I do have, some questions. One of, can the inspections of the crime-free housing program be put online so, one can see the properties that have been inspected? Also, I have another question kind of related to following the progress of, issues in the city. And I talked with the city manager, and the, on the website, there is a module that, you know, progress on issues can be tracked. And, city staff have taken a look at it, you know, the operations of that with other municipalities. And so they're moving forward to, put that up. I don't have a specific time frame on that. When will potholes on College Avenue be fixed or patched?
Or any others.
Yeah, you know, obviously, you know, I can't address that, you know, specifically. I know that, in the budget process, some new equipment was purchased so that the city could, you know, was better able to more quick, to continue to patch holes throughout the winter, because, the equipment that they had at a certain temperature level, it would fail. And so they'd have to go back to the, facility and basically heat it up. And so now, hopefully they're able to address them more quickly. I do have the name of the individual who put forward this question, and so I will, check with the new Public Works Director.
I can say that a couple weeks ago, they were patching potholes in the North Fifth, because they filled the one that was right where you made the turn by Elwood House that every single car hit, among others, but they were, and I was out talking to them. And it was because of the unusually warm weather. Normally, they wouldn't have been able to be out there, he said, in December.
And they also patched some places in the South Fifth.
Yes, right to my street.
Particularly the big one.
And I called and reported it, and I was told when I called, that they can now patch holes throughout the year, so call and let them know.
And as you know, there is a new, Public Works Director. And so John Wiskowski is no longer wearing two hats, so I think that will help, you know, with the coordination of activities. Misty?
Oh, let Diane
Oh,
have one,
I'm
she
sorry.
hasn't had one yet, and then,
Can you tell me, what the plans are for the TIF money, the Fifth Ward TIF money? You know, I know time is going by and it's gonna be lost. What plans
Are you asking in general the TIF funds?
No,
or
no,
TIF funds?
the TIF,
We had a
for
pa-
Fifth,
Yeah, we had a Fifth
Fifth
Ward
Ward TIF
plan
money.
for TIF money
Right.
in
And
2011.
And I know that some work was done in terms of, you know, signage and lights,
It was more than that. It was, it was, have you ever read it? The North Fifth Ward, that's what
the
you're asking about, right?
Elwood Historic Neighborhood Implementation Plan of 2011, and it's a revision of the implementation plan from 2000 and something, 5, I think, that's the actual title of the document.
Okay.
And what it was is just
That's my counsel.
briefly, is they asked the North Fifth Ward to come up with something that we would like for the Elwood Historic Neighborhood. We met for 2 years, we came up with a plan, it was passed by City Council. Some things happened out of that, but the big one was, the biggest thing is the city had asked us to lower density in our neighborhood. And so we had a plan to use TIF money to get a willing seller to sell us a house that had been converted, not one that started out as a multifamily, but one that had been converted and converted back. And then that got tabled, and it
Yeah,
never went back to that.
I was familiar with that decision, you know, and I have not heard that there is any action to move forward.
Well, then the
with
city
that.
center plan came in 2013 and sort of forgot that the 2011 plan was there and came up with the Communiversity Commons, which would take over several streets of the neighborhood and do something
that's-
completely different.
Yeah.
And that's why
That's-
you have a ward here where we are very interested in what goes on, and we read what happens. If we don't show up at the meetings, we watch it on TV, we read the minutes, and we're a pretty well-informed group. And so when we ask you questions, it's because we really want to know.
And, you know, at this point, I am not aware of the direction of any TIF funds for a specific North Ward 5 project. I will,
Or even Ward 5 in general, I mean, is gonna be used with the Shodine
Yeah.
project?
Yeah.
no, I have not heard, you know, and specifically, it's, you know, my understanding that they have not, you know, put in any request yet for, you know, city funds.
Would you agree with that if they did? Would you use TIF money for a Shodine?
For
You know,
housing?
it's really questionable at this point.
That's my
you
question,
know.
yeah.
You know, I'd have to see specifics.
So
you know,
you won't
for a
commit?
private enterprise.
They are.
I know they
And
are.
I
For a
have
private
no
enterprise, I'd
interest
have
in
to,
supporting a private
you know,
enterprise.
I
I've already
question
done
it.
that.
What would you like to see happen in the Elwood Historic Neighborhood?
I know that there are infrastructure issues, not exciting, but I think that, not exciting but necessary, just like maintaining, you know, your roof and furnace and so forth. The John Street area, you know, I think needs to be addressed because I think that
Addressed
there
by
are some-
what?
Yeah.
Well, I don't have solutions for everything. Misty asked what I would like to see, you know, done. Absentee landlords that I think, you know, sometimes, not always, but sometimes, you know, present problems. But I also know that flooding is impacted by the lagoon,
No, it's not. That's baloney.
That's
That's baloney. First place, that the university was trying to, there was a redevelopment that they were trying to do. They needed to change the lagoon so that it would allow them to redevelop without building a giant berm, okay? When they did that, they said, well, we need to blow the lagoon out and lower the level so that it would act as a detention pond rather than a retention pond. So that was the whole idea. I got all the drawings and documents
It's the
on that.
Kishwaukee
I got everything
floods.
they were planning,
The
okay?
Kishwaukee
And nothing to
floods.
do with what you're talking about.
It's the
Yeah.
It's
Kishwaukee
the,
Yeah.
the river's gonna flood, it's a
Right.
river.
Yeah.
They only moved
It's not
within
the lagoon.
200 yards.
And whatever, but
It needs
that
attention, is what you're
area
saying.
still needs to be addressed. So in terms of the question of,
Yeah.
you know, what, it needs to be addressed with being respectful of, you know, the residents, you know, because I know that you have concerns about,
Vast.
you know, parking and individuals who come into the neighborhood and crowding and so forth. So,
Trash.
and, you know, but I think reasonable plans that would come forward.
What do you mean by
Specifically, I
reasonable
mean like
plans?
development, or do you see development happening in there, or do you see the
I don't
homeowners?
see any development in the near future.
No, in the near
What's near
future, let's be more
future?
specific.
Well,
so
you
now
know,
what's near
Michael,
future?
until I'm, you know,
Next
we're
week?
talking in
You're
theoretical-
open to development in the far,
Potentially I am, depending upon what it is.
okay.
But again,
But who's?
I don't know who
Okay.
might do it.
You're our
and-
alderperson, are you
Uh-huh.
not?
Would you like lights
And-
at the baseball
Hold on a
field?
second. You are our alderperson, are you not? And you should represent what we want, is that correct? If we are telling you,
She never said
as a
she
group,
would.
I'm just asking, this is a question. If we are telling you as a group that we're not in favor of development in the North Fifth Ward, and to John Harrison, would you listen to that? Do you
Well,
represent us?
Yeah, I certainly, would listen to it, but, I don't think it's prudent to just automatically exclude development. Elizabeth?
I'm always wary of any public official who speaks in absolutes, except on a few things. First Amendment, perhaps. And development means an awful lot of things and means very different things to very different people. So I think you're saying, no, you don't see any development in the near future. 10 years down the road, 8 years down the road, and development could be someone coming in and saying, I'm going to convert this street to single-family homes. That's development.
I said economic development. I did preface it with economic.
Well, that's a kind of economic development,
we
too.
just-
So
we
what I'm
know
saying
the
is an
intent,
absolute
Elizabeth.
statement on what you don't know what you're voting on.
Well, we
The
know the
thing
intent of
is
the
that
question.
NIU came out with this plan to take out homes and to put in shops and apartments.
And the city did too.
And the city agreed with it.
No, the city did part of most
And
of
the
it.
city did part of it, and that's the type thing that we're looking at,
Commercial development.
Right.
where there are now
That's
homes.
There are a lot of, not a lot, but there are homeowners that have, in the past couple of years, sunk a lot of money into getting their homes, improved. And I think that should be noted.
Larry?
I think with this whole TIF thing or development in the Fifth Ward, I think what everyone is agreeing on, even if specifics were not, is that we would like a more proactive look at
Right.
the TIF dollars in relation to what it could do for the Fifth Ward's
Yes.
concerns and actual
Exactly.
issues that occur right now.
Exactly.
And so, for instance, an example of that is, and forgive my sarcasm because I love it, but those of us that are the poor sisters of the Fifth Ward, namely on the south side,
Right.
if you all on the north side are concerned
Yeah.
about what you've expressed,
Yeah.
we have on the south side a contaminated,
Yes.
thing.
Exactly.
We have
Yes.
entranceway into the city and
Exactly.
vacant things, etc.
Yes.
So I would hope that the thing that we come away with collectively from these points that we're making is that we simply are requesting that our alderperson be aware that we're very interested in
Absolutely.
seeing some of those TIF dollars
Yes.
be used for what are current issues and potential for the future, and don't let the rest of the city off the hook. And it's okay if you want to go and be forceful about needing to represent these various concerns, and with such dwindling and limited dollars available, it's okay to sit down with the city manager and other fellow council persons or the mayor and say, okay, enough is enough. Many of us on the south side had our homes flooded with raw sewage 3 times before finally there got to be the sanitary system fixed.
Right.
Enough.
Yes.
City council, get on the ball and let's put some money towards the south and the north side of the Fifth Ward towards these things, and you have our permission to go ahead and be nasty about it.
Please do.
The thing is, Kate, time is fleeting here, and we need to get this on your radar so you will,
Absolutely.
hear our concerns and not let that money, be suddenly put to something that,
Skating rinks.
yeah,
Excuse it.
Elizabeth, the gentleman behind you, and then.
I'd like to alter the focus a little bit, because so far we've primarily talked about spending money for various things, developing. I have much more concern about how we get our money. Whether council, the mayor, the city manager, the city attorney are ready to accept it or not, that money is created in the free market economy. If it's not created in the free market economy, you will never get it in Texas. With that as a beginning, the concern I have is that right now this city is working against itself. We talk economic development. Let me try to illustrate it with an analogy. Maybe all analogies are imperfect, but let me try to illustrate it with an analogy. Let's say you have a family unit, husband, wife, some kids. They own a home. It's a home that needs repairs, similar to the city of DeKalb with streets and sewers and blah, blah, blah. There were 2 earners in the family. Now there are only 1 because the other one's unemployed. Have you heard these ads on the radio where a guy comes on and says, what I do is replace all your copper pipes in the house, because if you have an older house, that's what you need. Well, the city right now is trying to repair all the copper pipes in the house with 1 person unemployed. That's not the time to repair the copper pipes in the house. You need to figure out how to get that other person employed. That's where economic development comes in. You have a staff of people addressing economic development, but you have a city attorney wrapping manufacturing so much red tape that he's driving the free market economy away.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
business.
And can you be more specific in terms of, you know, any action or ordinances which
If you
are
sit
making?
on the
Yeah.
council and you haven't figured this out, I can't help you.
I don't sit on the city council. Would you be able to share one example, perhaps, of some red tape that has passed that has restricted businesses? I would really like to hear.
I can give you.
Oh yeah, Misty, please.
The setback from the street on Lincoln Highway is one, that the Sawyer property
Yeah.
that is now sitting vacant, my understanding, which may be imperfect, correct me if I'm wrong, had the opportunity to have a restaurant in there, Subway or something, and they wanted to have the parking lot between the street and the building. And Mr. Frieder said, no, 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 our rules say you have to have the building first and then the parking lot behind it. And that went away. That's just one example, but that business dealing went away because of the red tape, is my understanding.
I know that came before the city council and we did approve.
That's the second one you approved, not
The
first.
second
Oh,
one, there's been 2 on that property. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Let me come back, because I don't want to get hung up on one thing here. I just want to finish off. We sit here as a town with a town next to us. Our tax rates are higher in almost every case than the town next to us. So let's say that our city economic development staff is successful, and they actually entice someone to come down here and do due diligence and take a look. What are the chances that this entity, once they have a chance to take a look, will come to DeKalb and not go to Sycamore, even if they like the area, given that we're doing what we can to drive business away and Sycamore is doing what it can to attract business? Final thing. A couple years ago, I asked a realtor I know, a hypothetical question, and I said to him, this is a hypothetical, maybe you can't answer it, maybe you don't want to answer it, but here's the question. Pick out a property in DeKalb, residential, pick out a property in DeKalb, pick out a property in Sycamore that you think is comparable. What's the difference in price? I won't tell you what he said, but you think about it, and you go talk to some realtor and ask that question. In other words, our asset prices are being lowered in this town. Sycamores are going up. We're driving business away. They're attracting business. We are never going to get this person in the house who has lost his job employed again if we don't change our ways.
Cameron, for specifics, rather than taking the meeting that direction, if you go to the municipal code and check the current municipal code that has been here in the last year or two versus what was here before, I think you can find some rules and regs that will answer your question.
Thanks very much, Ms.
I do have some additional questions that were raised. Individual asked about hiring an IT person, suggesting that would help dramatically in improving city efficiency and should pay for itself. Has any progress been made towards such a hiring? Hiring of an IT director was deferred. It will be looked at in terms of the next budget process. Also, the individual felt that the council lacks a forum to have a back and forth discussion on emerging concerns rather than on immediate legislation. Some of that will be addressed when the council meets on the strategic plan. Also, we did, Alderman Jacobson brought forward a proposal for us to meet on a periodic basis. And,
Do you know when that first meeting's gonna be? Because that legislation was passed a long time ago, like 8-9 months ago, and I haven't heard a peep about that. And I brought those concerns to you at a meeting a few weeks ago. Never got a direct answer to that question.
I know, as I said, we are discussing the strategic plan on Thursday, and whether that would necessarily,
Open to the public?
you know,
It has to be. Is that open to the public?
I'll be honest, Bessie, I don't know. I have not seen it posted specifically.
That would
there's been-
concern me if it's not.
If there's more than one alderman present, you have to open it up.
It's going to be, just so you know, it's going to be in the Zimmerman room, in the new library, at 5:30.
Good.
What day is that? Thursday? Okay.
And but why wouldn't it be here where it could be televised so everybody could?
Yeah, can we request an audio recording being made of that meeting for posterity's sake?
You have, address it to the city clerk.
Okay.
Request.
Before we leave, can we talk just a minute on the website?
Oh, let me, as soon as I finish these additional
Okay.
questions.
I have till 11:30.
This person also raised a question about requiring clearance for a person to enter City Hall and asked for my perspective on that. I think given the current climate, nationally, internationally, I think prudent precautions are taken. If it's very easy, to contact, city staff, get an appointment, or come in and explain your business. I think rather than having totally open access, that is prudent.
Sycamore's wide open. I walked right up and talked to the finance director. He's a friend.
County too.
Yeah.
Why is DeKalb different than these other locations they just mentioned?
Again, my opinion was asked, and I do think it is a.
I think it's very
If you come in
rational.
and don't have an appointment, they turn you away and say you have to go get an appointment.
Yeah.
They won't pick up the phone and call upstairs.
Well, but you can call, you know, at
But
that
you can
point.
come to my office at NIU anytime you want. I'm a state employee.
Right. Yeah,
You can come talk to
you,
me.
your constituents are
office is
against
open.
this idea, so you said you'd be listening to what your constituents had to say, so please listen to what they have to say.
Well, and I know it has come forward, but I know that there have been credible concerns, you know, brought forward, you know, to the city management.
We had a
And-
shooting. We
Pardon?
had a shooting on February and we still open.
Larry?
For access, all public groups have been going through trying to figure out how to ensure more, safety, et cetera. I think the legitimate thing we're raising is, look, if I come in here at the spur of the moment and I haven't called ahead, can at least the clerk downstairs call up
Yes.
and simply say, hey, so-and-so, somebody's down here, they've got this question, they'd like
Right.
to just chat with you, are you available? And the answer is yes, or it's no, I'm actually going to a meeting right now, but I could meet with somebody at whatever.
Well, Montgomery, she shut Montgomery down, okay?
City
Anne Marie,
manager.
when
Anne
she
Marie.
took over in Montgomery, she shut down the Montgomery. I talked to the city councilman there, and there was no access for public unless you, in fact, the city council couldn't even come into the building.
The appearance is that
Yeah.
staff is insulating them from the citizens of
Right.
the city.
After she
That's
Including,
not how-
isn't the city's clerk, do you have to make an appointment to go to the city clerk office?
That's not how they should appear.
In the city clerk's office are the closed meeting minutes that are in bound volumes, and if I want to inspect those meeting minutes, I have to make an appointment to do so. In the past, I used to be able to walk up there and look at those meeting minutes. On the subject of those closed meeting minutes, I also requested our city manager to put those on our new high-fangled website that we have, and I gotta, well, we'll think about it. I'm talking about the approved closed meeting minutes. They are not on our website, and the only way to look at those is to make an appointment at the city clerk's office. There are 3 or 4 red bound volumes in the city clerk's office that you have to make an appointment to see. That should be posted on the city website. I've requested that. I was told it would be considered. That's something, once approved, why it can't be posted like anything else defies me, so.
I also believe that those should be housed in our beautiful new library, so anybody can come in.
Yeah,
and
that's a
look.
good idea too.
Good idea, Kathy.
Well,
There
that's,
should be more access to documents, studies that have been done in the past, things like that, so you don't have to FOIA, you know, like, what's the address of City Hall? You know, it really, I'm being facetious, but it's true.
They make you
know,
FOIA
and
anything.
I have learned that unfortunately, there is not a centralized inventory of city documents. So, you know, comprehensive inventory, so that everybody knows all the studies on the Egyptian are here, all of this is here. So that does make, you know, it
Well,
somewhat
that's
more of a
what we do.
trial,
Kate,
you
you
know,
know,
to locate.
As an FYI,
information.
part of the reason for that is because of the mess that was made at the city clerk's office, where that was a funneling point. And, there are many people, including the Landmarks Commission and other people who are, retired and so on, who can very easily help to catalog those types of documents and do those kinds of things. And I've mentioned that to the staff, but there is definitely a roadblock of trying to communicate and gain access to information at City Hall, and that climate needs to change.
I know Ruth is working on, you know, collating, collecting, you know.
But others can
documents.
help, the public can help.
Mhm.
You know, they, you know, people can volunteer. I can get you about 10 people who could come in here and help to collate and do that kind of thing, and help staff out, so we don't have to hire somebody to do it necessarily.
The website that I, you know,
Yeah,
mentioned.
it should be on the
The
website.
website that I mentioned, if you had things on the website that the people wanted to look at, and it's very hard to get to that, they've gone to YouTube now for city council meetings, you have to now go to YouTube to get it. It used to be on the website. If you had things on the website, the FOIA laws say that they're to direct you to the website. But if they're not on the website, when you call for a FOIA, you call them, you say, I wanna know what color the ceiling tiles are. I'm sorry, you'd have to FOIA that. They can't look up and say they're white like everybody else's. And I realize that's being a bit facetious, but we're being told to FOIA everything.
Right.
They won't give us the information. Then they complain that there's too many FOIAs.
Yeah, I had that.
It's a catch-22. If you put it on the website and you made the website accessible, a lot of that would go away. Now, I can't say that the corporate ones would go away or the ones that have to do with police issues would go away, but those of us that are asking questions like, what did you do last Thursday, we would be able to get to them. Or what happened in a closed session, or a number of other things.
Well, also, too, don't forget that when they converted or migrated the website, they forgot to migrate most of the videos from the meetings.
Yeah, you can't get
You know,
old,
I
you
asked
can't
them,
get
I-
old meetings at all.
And I
They
have,
only go-
when we get around to it,
They're not responsive.
I'd like to pick up, sort of pulling together something Larry said earlier in his excellent remark, the gentleman behind me with the analogy about the family with one income. And sometimes, even with one income, if the water heater breaks down or the roof leaks, you gotta do something. There are parts of the Fifth Ward, both north and south, which are the older parts of town. At the next meeting, I would be interested to know what parts of the Fifth Ward have the oldest water pipes. The city knows this.
Yeah.
And I think, yeah, I would like to know that. I would like to know if it's by my house and my neighborhood, yeah.
Part of your red
That was
tape.
brought up.
Yeah.
That was brought up at a council meeting too. Matter of fact, I think I did, because I asked that question when pipes started to break. Kate, that was before you were on the council. They started to break intermittently throughout the south part of the Fifth Ward. And I asked the council, I said, do you have a program that sort of is going to check out, the status of the pipes? And it's, that's the long-range thing. And as those gentlemen have said, not only do we need to look at the lack of revenue and taxes should not be the only source of revenue, but the planning for utilizing the TIF monies. I think that's a huge, huge issue to really sit down and look at the TIF and really strategize. You do a wish list. I want this, 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 and then strategize where those monies would best be spent to accommodate the needs of most people in the community. Definitely in the Fourth Ward and the south side over here on the South 4th Street, big area that could bring in some economic development. That's been sorely ignored over the years. And in the Fifth Ward, in parts of the Fifth Ward, how can those monies be utilized to best uplift what this gentleman was saying as far as the economic development of our community? I'm not seeing a discussion of the long-range planned use of TIF. And if I could suggest, I've suggested this to staff and I may have even written to council, it would be nice to have a map of the TIF districts displayed over here, where it's more readily available to the public, along with a list, a running list since its inception. What monies have been spent on TIF, what monies, what projects, and if possible, an analysis of the economic impact.
That'd be a good thing to have on
I
the
don't
website.
think that has been done. The only place you can find it is if you dig through the annual reports. That should be a running list because that would inform the public and it would inform you too. I don't know, and I was on the council and I served. I couldn't tell you, but that would certainly give you as the decision maker and the rest of the council an informed information about how the monies have been used in the past. And I betcha we're gonna find out some very interesting things that maybe sometimes they were used wisely and other times they weren't. And now we're at the point where we need to use them wisely for infrastructure. And, and also the only other thing is to not spend so much money on studies.
Yeah,
You don't
we
need
agree with that.
$50,000, as my mechanic told me when he drove me back home with my car from fixing it. We were talking about the $50,000 for the Egyptian theater to tell us that it's an asset. He says,
isn't that why we restored it in the first place 40 years ago? You know,
Yeah,
50,000 could go towards the air conditioning that we all know it needs.
yeah, Bessie, let me point out that part of what they're going to be taking a look at with that study is what is the best, governance model for that? Is it to be, the city run it, is it, for profit?
Oh, God. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Entertainment?
You don't need $50,000.
Taxpayers are responsible?
Elizabeth, I just wanted to mention that, I will ask, the Public Works Director that question. We do have a council meeting on Monday. I don't know if it will necessarily, that information will be available for that meeting, but, I will get back to you
It isn't
on
that quickly, but I think the next meeting, I'm sorry, what I meant by next meeting was your next ward meeting. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
okay. Oh,
I was on,
okay.
Right.
Oh,
next
I
ward
thought you
meeting,
were
and if
looking
they
for
have a
that.
map, even better,
Okay.
that we could look at it and see.
I'm sorry.
I'd like to give you 3 instances, and you could throw a rock and hit all 3 of them right here, of where, when you go into the development department, we're talking about where they tore down Sawyer's. He looked at Lovett's and he figured, well, I could do that, build it on the alley, and they could park in front. He should have found this out before he bought the property. But since he's bought it, he had to tear the alley up. Sawyer wasn't just one sewer connection, it's a multiple bunch of buildings that had 5 sewer connections going into that property. And he had to pay for not only disconnecting all those, replacing the main sewer line and just stubbing one in. Now, Lovett was offered a deal where he could sell his business to somebody that wanted to do mechanical work. No, they told him, you can't change, it's not zoned for that. It's just for changing tires. Now, they moved out of the 4th Street Motors. How many acres are vacant there now that somebody owns? And they're trying to rent it out. Used car dealer came in, he's interested. City says, we don't see that in the future for that property. This town is anti-business. They send them to Sycamore or Rochelle. Maybe they'll go for it. This isn't something just made up, some story. This is the truth. That's what people in business in this town are leaving.
Here, Kate. I'm sorry. Well,
Hi, Kate. I'm not a resident of the 5th Ward, however.
you'd be welcome to be a resident.
Wanna buy a house?
I hope other council members take your leadership and would hold these kinds of meetings with their aldermen every 6 months. Because it truly gets the true feelings and concerns of the residents of the ward. So I hope at least once a year would be nice, but every 6 months is greater, that all alder people would do that. Just a couple quick comments, because the concerns they raise are very valid. Chaudine's proposal, they're short 222 parking spots. They need 686, they only have 464, so where are 222 cars gonna go? And it ties in too with TIF. If you give TIF money to the Chaudine development, now you are in business, giving a competitive edge to a business, whether they're building apartments or if I was a hotel owner. So any TIF money that would go to the Chaudine development, you need to consider that the city is now in business with the existing businesses in the city of DeKalb. In regards to something I've said for 5 years, is we need organic growth. The number one focus for the city of DeKalb should be how do we have organic growth? And it goes to the other points of not fix what we have, but how do we attract business and be business friendly? Things that are unbusiness friendly are like the commercial building inspection ordinance that the city passed, that originally the city attorney wrote, that was completely scrapped because it took so much energy out of the community to defeat the original proposal, and still questionable on the second one that was approved, but business unfriendly. Now the city was proposed last year a sales tax increase to fix streets and fleets. sales tax will be completely business unfriendly. It's not only a tax to the existing members here in the community, but why wouldn't you go to Sycamore, either buy your supplies, or if you're a business, sell your goods and services at a lower tax rate? So I think taxes are number one thing when a business is looking here, or residents all the way around. Just a couple quick comments, but thank you for hosting this forum, and I hope the others definitely would take your role in it as well.
Yep.
With all this lively discussion, I'm glad you talked about the Shelby development. We've kind of gotten away from that, but it's a major concern to me. I use Pearl Street every day to get to my house because I live pretty much just around the corner there. And I will make a strong statement. I think that the density they are requesting is nothing short of obscene. And we were talking about parking. They would, with their proposal for the number of parking, they'd have plenty of parking if they fit within the city guidelines of the number of units that they should have there.
Their dwellings, they propose, are 81 units per acre. City code for need of variance is 12 or 14.
Right.
If you
Yeah, well, we already
include the
did that with the
hotel, it
University
drops to
Village.
31 units per acre, so
And that's
way,
why-
way over density. So I'm a capitalist. If they can build that without TIF and follow the current city rules, they should. And
And-
that's what makes the free capitalist system work. But if you start granting variances and
Yeah.
waiving requirements, it puts the burden on the other residents within the city.
Yes.
And I am very concerned about the access being on Pearl Street. I don't know how that's gonna work. I don't know how you're gonna widen Pearl Street because it's gonna, when there's a train now, that traffic is backed up.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
Going both ways because people know how to get around there. I don't know how that could possibly work with the access on Pearl Street there. Without a stop sign and without widening Pearl Street underneath the railroad tracks, which I don't see how that's gonna happen, but I just wanted to let you know my concerns. I would have gone to the plan commission, but I had a conflict.
And the public wasn't allowed to comment at the planning commission, and they will not be allowed to comment at the, Shodine made a proposal, a workshop session to the planning commission, even though in the backup material it said the zoning and planning commission should take public comment, no public comment was allowed, and at the zoning and planning commission, they said they will make a presentation to city council later this month. Again, no public comment will be allowed.
That's
They
why,
said
that's right.
That's why.
for the initial process, initial stage.
I can go along, but back with economic development, this is my big bugaboos, obviously. One of the problems that we have is that we use our TIF money to do things like
Yeah.
that are not terrible things. I'm not gonna say they're horrible things to do. What I'm going to say is we don't strategically use that money. In other words, we don't plan for the future DeKalb, we're still fixing the old DeKalb.
Yeah.
What we should be doing with that money is what you and I talked about this a lot on the campaign. We should be looking at doing the last mile for the fiber optics. We should be attracting businesses with that. That is the most important thing we have for economic development in the 21st century is we're interconnected world, an interconnected community, and we need to be there. The reason the government stuck that stupid fiber optic line in, whether you're Republican or Democrat, was there to allow us to join the 21st century. This little dinky town in the middle of nowhere, okay? We need to turn us from the little dinky town in the middle of nowhere to an international city. We have the ability to get on that line, and we should be pushing the city to be using that money for things that are important, like future development, not short-term stuff.
And dovetailing on that, and what this gentleman over here said, is that you need things that bring jobs. Being connected is something that potential corporations will look for when they would come here. And trying to do everything on the retail dollar, on sales tax and on property tax is gonna keep us in the same place that we are now. We need to have some corporations come in here with some viable jobs. When they had a summit back 13 and a half years ago, I came to it and I said the same thing, that we need to get some jobs in here, manufacturing or high-tech. I suggested high-tech, and and Michael talked about it on the campaign trail, he's got a high-tech lab here that is underutilized. There are things that can be done. It's just, you gotta wanna do them and you gotta go after them.
Since you're new to the aldermanic position, I just want to kind of find out, your thoughts as far. All aldermen always say, we'd like public input. We'd love to have public, participate in things. Can you cite one or two examples of your tenure here on the council where people who gave you public input actually made you change a decision that you already had? It seems like all the decisions are pre-made, and when the public comes up and talks to council, their minds are already set. Can you cite any examples of, since you've been alderman, of when people came before council who expressed their points of view that you changed your decision on something? Maybe you had a preconceived decision based on staff recommendations. Like, can you cite anything like that? Because I know most of your votes are consistent with the mayor. I haven't seen one vote that has been different from the mayor. and I'm a little concerned about that, because...
But I will tell you, I don't talk to the mayor before issues come up, typically. I'm sure that there have been times that I have. I get the packet of information, like the public does, like the other council members do. And I allot, 2 to 4 hours plus, to read that. And usually I kind of skim it once and then go back and review the material, because, it's a lot to absorb at one time. As I have questions, circle those, note those, and then I will, call either the city manager or the finance director. Those are probably the two people that I'm in touch with most frequently on questions. We do have the opportunity, because items come up for 2 readings, to get additional information. And for example, with the University Village issue, I talked to people. I made appointments and I talked to people on both sides of the issue. And I kind of had one thought, and then I was kind of waffling, and then again, after taking a look at all the information, I did vote yes.
Would you weigh your decision on that particular issue, the email and conversations that you had with people in your ward, because you represent your ward first, were people in your ward in favor or against the University Village? Your constituents. I'm not talking about the city as a whole.
I will be honest. On any issue, I do hear from a number of people. I do not hear from, even 10 people typically.
Really?
On an issue. If I hear from 5,
Right.
say, sometimes afterwards, as I'm out and about, someone will come up and say, I'm glad you voted this way, or I wish you hadn't voted this way. But again, I don't, the actual numbers aren't real
Did you hear
significant.
from Tom Mattia or John Roberts on any of that stuff? Doug Roberts, and Tom Mattia on the University
No.
Village? Okay.
Kate, when you were running for office, I asked you 3 times if you would devote special attention or credibility or credence to the people in your ward versus the city as a whole, and you said absolutely not. I vote for the city as a whole. Though that is not how you were, it was not a citywide election to put you in this position, but I asked you 3 times because that very much concerned me. That said, I want to thank you for doing this today. I know this can't be something you look forward to.
Oh no,
And I
I
very much appreciate it because, and I can only speak for myself here, I feel very much marginalized by the city. and the city staff, you can't contact them, you can't come up. When people come to the city council meeting, they are disrespected, disregarded, you know, rolling of eyes, playing games on their tablets, whatever they're doing is very disrespectful. And we've had a couple contacts, and you've referred, you know, you've kind of toddle along, you know, there's a parking study, toddle along. And this is much better, and I'm grateful for this. Have you thought about maybe a little kitchen cabinet, people that you consult on matters in your ward on a regular basis, so that you do get a feel? So that you're proactive rather than waiting
I
for
mean,
input?
there are a number of people, you know, that I do hear from pretty regularly. You know, I think that's a good idea, if you're volunteering.
I
will-
absolutely would be delighted, yes.
Okay, I'll, make a note, and I have your email on
do
the
indeed.
sign-up sheet.
Okay.
What would you think of the idea of, obviously, we can't do anything for the aldermen that are we can't require anything, but put into legislation a requirement for the aldermanic position and mayoral position to have a required maybe 6-month ward meeting as part of the job? I mean, you're doing it, which is great, but it would be nice to see the other aldermen do that. What would you think of putting forth some sort of legislation that would put that into effect as a job requirement for the position? So all aldermen are required to have these meetings on an interim basis that you guys see fit, 6 months, 3 months.
You know, I think the idea has merit. I don't know, you know, if it
Right.
can be required. I can certainly
Well, it's
find
something,
out
right, at least for
if-
discussion, you know, because this
you
is,
know,
So productive.
this is very productive, you know. Everybody seems to enjoy, you know, the conversation, you know, so.
Even I'm enjoying.
Well, are you?
Oh,
Okay.
now.
Also, put something, Kate, also, in the past, it had been a practice that, each alderman is assigned to a specific board or commission to which they serve as liaison.
Oh, that's a good
And
idea.
then they come back and report on a regular basis to the rest of the council, like blah, blah, board and commission did blah, 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 blah.
Ah.
Rather than
And-
dismantling them, you mean?
Well, absolutely, rather than, you're gonna see a fight like nobody's business if they try to dismantle those commissions, because they are extremely important, they're a direct link to the public.
Also,
But
landmark
that would be a
commission.
wonderful way for the council to, you know, I
Appointed
think
by
I
the
did.
mayor.
I was the liaison to the airport, where they liked me because I would take them green cookies all the time. But,
Why haven't I been on the commission?
well, I can make, but
Do you
I
need
don't
green
know, that's a
cookies?
good thing. Cookies for this. That's, you know, help
Yeah,
the
Alderman
dialogue.
Naylor used to have cookies
You know,
at his.
I,
He did.
didn't he?
Yes, donuts.
You know, I will, I know that the mayor was taking a look at the commission.
No, I know
you
what the mayor
in
wants.
terms of, people who were active on them, people who, may have,
Yeah, there's no
kind of
economic
run out of their
development.
ability to serve. Just a quick funny story about that. I got this, agenda for the airport advisory board. And I was like, I called the mayor and I said, am I on this board? Am I supposed to be doing something with this? If so, I'm gonna tell you, there are people who are far more qualified to serve on the airport advisory board. I know airplanes go up, hopefully they come down the way they should. I have nothing to contribute to this board, other than being a warm body. And so, but what I did, say to him was, I'd be happy to serve on any number of other boards, but something that, is so technically oriented is that I looked at the member list and, there were, a number of in fact, they identified people who were pilots and who were not pilots, and I thought, man, I would really end up on the bottom of that list. So, but, I understand, and, it does make a
Well,
lot of
like
sense
the
not to
liaison
find
would
out.
be to report, so the council is aware, and also.
To
if
make
there's
our
a mistake-
announcements.
Yeah, right, to just make sure that
You look
that
like somebody
particular
who's on the
board, the
library
boards and
board.
commissions have a direct link to the council which they serve. And another thing that had been done in the past, and I can't remember all the specific details, but the plan commission had ex officio members, on it, I believe one was from the school
district from the school board, which was an important kind of a link. They didn't get to vote, but they too got to report back to. It has to do with that dialogue that's important between citizenry and council and between the intergovernmental spots, not just on the staff level. That's, in my humble opinion, that's where things have gone south as far as exchange between people and their government. Too much has been abdicated to the staff. That is not the way. You and others who are elected need to be the ones communicating with each other. Because that's very, very important.
You know,
I have to leave too. Thank you
Yes.
very much for having this.
This is such a great jumping off
Great
point.
idea. You know, I'm certainly willing to stay. I know that, you know, some people did have some initial questions and issues that you wanted to bring forward. I appreciate, you know, everybody's interest, your willingness, you know, to come out. It isn't always easy or fun to come out on a snowy, well, it is now snowy.
We need you to be our champion. We need you to fight for us.
You know, and, you know, I think it's, I would be interested in hearing, you know, what ideas you
Wonder
have.
in terms of, you know, use of the TIF dollars,
Let's schedule it.
in your area.
Okay,
I
I
will
will
send
send
you
you
that,
a-
Kate, you know. Yeah.
And you and I do.
Last thing I needed.
We need a breakout. You know, I noticed that you were recording this.
Can we put this on YouTube?
Okay,
Yes, so
the
everybody
one,
can see.
okay, the one thing I would ask
Yes.
in the future is, if you're going to do it, you give me warning beforehand.
Oh, it is a public forum, so
Uh-huh.
anything can be recorded.
Uh-huh.
So I mean, if
Okay.
it's if we're talking on the street, but you published an official meeting online and it was posted on the city council, so it is open and.
You're right, it is
and I think it's
open
great.
and
I want all the residents to see, and you know, I'm appreciative of the fact you did this. I mean, this is something you didn't have to do. And
Well, I promised that I would do it, and
it is,
I
and that's a-
recognize that it took me a little bit longer than I had,
Right.
you know, anticipated.
Right.
You know, and so I was glad that it wasn't icy.
Well, yeah, I was going to
today.
say, I felt sorry for you. I heard about what happened and the slip, and ice is not a good thing.
Yeah, I
So,
walked around with the knee brace for a
right.
couple of weeks.
Well, thank you for